Good morning and welcome to Apex Online Racing. We're here today for the 9th round of the 4th season of AOR Oceania here on PS4. My name's Alex, some of you might know me as Curly. I'll be providing the broadcast for you today. Sorry, I forgot to turn the volume off on my other monitor. Yeah, we're here in Suzuka, always a very challenging track for the drivers, very technically difficult circuit. The first sector, obviously, with the S section, lots of changes of direction, and certain points on this track, particularly at turn 1, where with the high ballast setups that are kind of the meta on F1 2018, the car can get very, very loose and oversteery, and it can send you spinning off either into the gravel or worse yet into the wall. Now, I do have confirmation that the strategy is going to be a little bit different for this race because it is meant to be light rain throughout the entirety of the Grand Prix, so it will be 27 laps of wet weather running apparently. So that means that the typical strategy would have been to qualify on the soft tyres and then do a one stop onto the mediums. However, because of the rain in the race, it's likely that all of the drivers will be qualifying on the super soft compound tyres. I've had a question about the championship, so we'll head over to that. We'll find ourselves Amazing Hour on the track and watch him go around a little bit. Our championship leader currently with 173 points. He is 40 points ahead of Pete in the Mercedes. He's currently sitting in P2 on the grid. And because he's 40 points ahead, what that means is that Pete must outscore Amazing Hour by more than 15 points if he wants the championship to continue to Brazil. So realistically, even if Pete wins the race today, if Amazing Hour finishes within the top 5, he has won the championship because he has enough wins that even if the points is level on 25, that he would win it on the number of first places regardless. So, for Amazing Hour today, he just has to finish, regardless of what happens. If he finishes in the top 5, he will be the champion of Season 4 of AOR Oceania on PS4. However, if things go horribly wrong, then for Amazing Hour, we might see the championship continue on to Brazil, but it is a very, very long shot for Pete Crichton. Amazing Hour not quite hooking up that first lap as well as he would have liked. I believe that he will be going for a second one. No, he's actually backed out. Currently sitting in 7th place, which is a bit further down than we would normally expect from him. He's normally up there on the front couple of rows in qualifying, but certainly throughout this season it's been the race pace from him that's put him above the Mercedes drivers in the championship. They've been very close in qualifying, but once it comes to the races, particularly in the second stint, Amazing Hour has just had that extra little bit, that extra tenth or two that's turned to sort of turn the tides from qualifying into the race. But yeah, he'd be very disappointed to start this race in 7th, especially in the wet. The opening corner at Suzuka is very difficult off of the start at the best of times, and in the wet it's likely to be an absolute nightmare. So for the drivers, it's critical that they get themselves as far up the grid as they possibly can to avoid any possible carnage there. Having a little look further down the championship, we got a great battle for 4th place between Contrast, Plebs, and possibly Piga. Contrast with 79 points, Plebs with 68, and Piga with 59. So those guys all battling it out for the 4th place, and this season really has been a case of Amazing Hour and the 2 Mercedes drivers of Darren and Pete out in front, and then this little group behind them scrapping over 4th, 5th, 6th place, and occasionally the podium. Those guys have picked up a number of 3rd places this season. However, no 2nd or 1st places for either of Contrast, Plebs, or Piga. So who knows, possibly wet weather today might give them an opportunity to make their way into the top 2. Plebs getting himself into 5th place, interestingly enough behind Harry Tomato, who's currently sitting in a very nice position in qualifying. He's sat 8th place in the championship with 33 points and is in a very, very close fight with Crossy and Dynamite for 7th place. Crossy with 35, Harry Tomato with 33, and Dynamite with 31 points. So those guys all very tightly packed together, and if Harry Tomato was to start this race in 4th, that would be a huge, huge leap for him in the championship, but possibly securing that 7th place. That would give him a great opportunity in the race. quite a difficult moment for the drivers. Obviously, they would have expected to likely do their qualifying laps on the soft compound tyre. Possibly there were one or two that were maybe going to try qualifying on the softs, or on the super softs, and do that one stop. It is possible in the dry to do a super soft medium, but it's very, very tight on tyres. But now we know that this rain is coming at the start of the race. Well, that really has thrown a spanner in the practice for the drivers. I mean, yeah, it's quite difficult if you've been practicing all week for a certain strategy, you know, perhaps qualifying on those soft compound tyres, and then you get into the session itself and you've suddenly got to learn how to qualify on a completely different set of tyres. The good news is the drivers will have multiple runs on these super softs. It's not the sort of almost one-shot qualifying that qualifying on the softs typically is here. You get one, maybe 2 laps on them, whereas with the supers, especially starting in the rain as well, you can use multiple sets of tyres and maybe do more than 1 lap on them, really. If you're confident it's going to be intermediates for the start, then you don't need to worry too much about overusing the tyres in qualifying. As Swaggy gets a massive moment of oversteer up through Dunlop. So he swings the Technos now all over the first curve, takes that pretty nicely, just misses the apex of the second Degner there, and he's backed out of it. He's backed out of the lap. He's not happy with it, so I think he was down a bit on his time after that big moment at Dunlop, and a little bit of a scruffy set of Degners for him. Elton up in 4th. Now that's something I wasn't expecting to say today, but Elton has put in an absolute blinder of a lap for himself just while we were on board with the McLaren there, and has got himself up into the top 4 at the moment. Currently 1.5 seconds off of pole as he's had a little trip into the gravel. I think he's a little bit shocked at where he's ended up. He would be very, very happy. I think he'd be beyond happy to start the race in 4th place. We'll keep an eye on him and see how he gets on for the rest of this session, as he's just trying to keep himself out of the way, I think, of other cars coming through. But Dynamite making his way across the line. He goes into 5th. Gets himself just up ahead of Harry Tomato. Only 16 thousandths between those guys. Of course, Harry Tomato making his way to the end of his second run here. 7 minutes remaining in this session. As Pete Crichton sets a pole time 26.5, counts himself a long way ahead of his teammate. And yeah, those Mercedes really have been pretty special in qualifying all season long. We'll see what Harry Tomato is able to do. Can he improve on his lap time? He does. He goes up to 3rd place. Harry Tomato seems to be absolutely on it today in Suzuka, and is finding some pace from somewhere. Himself up into the top 3. Andres had a lap on the soft tyres. It might just be, might be on those because he's not, you know, got that many sets of super softs. Maybe he went for the harder tyre strategy, which would only give him 2 sets of the super soft tyres in qualifying. But he set himself a lap on the softs. Either that, or he hasn't checked the weather, which is a mistake that you do see occasionally in league racing. It's typically a mistake that drivers only really make once, but it does happen at times, as Swaggy is all over the white lines of the Exodus spoon. He very, very nearly extends the track, but just about keeps it within the margins as he makes his way through 130R, of course completely flat out, and down into the final chicane. Difficult chicane, awkward braking zone, and then the traction can be quite difficult out of here. There's a massive bump just there on the run to the line that can really unsettle the car, but Swaggy has put on an absolute blinder of a lap. We saw him struggling a little bit earlier on, but clearly not anymore. He goes up to 2nd place, manages to split the Mercedes drivers. So a very good lap from him. Let's see if we can find Darren. He's not on a lap at the moment. Plews is just, I think, on an out lap. Either that, he's just backed out of one. So Kremer might be on a lap then. Currently in overtake mode through the S section, which is well, certainly unorthodox to do that. Generally, we would put the energy mode down a little bit in the slower sections of track, or sections of track where you don't really need the added boost from the higher energy mixes. The S section typically one of those. It's all down to what you feel comfortable doing on your qualifying lap. Is Kremer gets all over the curbs there. He might have invalidated his lap. I think he has. He's down to mode 0. But yeah, just on those energy mixes, it really comes down to what you feel comfortable doing. I mean, there's some drivers that are happy to change those energy modes all over their qualifying lap. Constantly making adjustments on their wheel. Then the drivers just like stick it in one mode and just use that. It's theoretically slower to do so, but it does allow you to just fully concentrate on the lap itself without having to worry about changing anything, and possibly that can make you quicker. But Yeah, it's one of those difficult things about F1 2018, the way that the energy modes work kind of pushes the drivers into changing those mixes on the qualifying laps themselves. And Josh is backed out there as well. I think he invalidated out of the exit of Spoon. So off and more with Piga, who of course we mentioned earlier, being in that fight for P4 in the championship. Currently sitting in 16th place, and in a wet start of the race, he will not want to start all the way down in 16th. I mean, an absolute nightmare start for him. Doesn't quite hook up the chicane, doesn't really get himself over the curbs at all. Very scruffy through there. Will have lost quite a lot of time to the other drivers. As he crosses the line, it's P5, but it could have been so much more. He dropped a lot of time in that final sector. I think he might be going for another lap here because it's very tight on time. The rear end of the car just stepping out a little bit through the first corner. You could hear it sliding away underneath him as he makes his way up through the first sector. And again, just not really hitting the apexes in the way that he would like. This has been a bit scruffy so far from Piga. Maybe realizing his position in the championship fight that he's in, that 4th place, and feeling a little bit of the pressure. Of course, this track is just generally very difficult to drive as well. It's such a technically challenging circuit that you see a lot more mistakes around here than you typically do at most other tracks, and especially in the wet. There's some corners on this track that aren't corners at all in the dry, like this 200R curve here that Piga is making his way through, but in the wet you're actually going to be concerned about managing the throttle through there. It's not just easy flat like it is in the dry. So yeah, it certainly is a very challenging track at best of times, and in the wet it's going to be very, very difficult for the drivers. We'll see if Piga's up on his lap time, and he is not up on his lap time according to the delta there. So maybe he's just running the high energy mixes to desperately try and make his way back to the pits. Again, a lot of oversteer through the chicane. He does pull into the pits, but he's got less than 3 minutes. It's going to be very tight for Piga to try and get himself back around for another lap. We'll see if he's able to do it in time, as basically everyone is in the pits now. Only a couple drivers out on track. Crossy starting a lap, Contrast in the middle of one, making his way towards Spoon. The iconic corners of the Suzuka circuit, a very difficult one. Contrast made a little bit of a meal of that in this qualifying lap. He was very wide as well. Lots of drivers really pushing the track limits there, getting right out on that exit curb. Of course, running that overtake mode all the way along the straight there. As far as qualifying laps are concerned, that 130R is really considered part of the straight. It's completely flat out. Contrast sets a lap time. It's only P8 for him. He will be very, very disappointed with that. Obviously battling for that 4th place in the championship, starting P8 is not what he needs at all, especially when Piga, someone he's battling with, is up there in P5. So if he has enough fuel, which it doesn't look like he does, I think that's pretty much qualifying over for Contrast. He's in a very, very difficult position for the race, assuming that others are going to improve. As we'll watch his teammate make his way through the first sector, all the drivers pretty much now making their way out of the pits on their out laps before the final run of the session. Interestingly enough, Andre is still there on the soft compound tires. He's not out on the track. I don't think he's realized that it's going to be rain for the race. I don't think he knows. I don't think he's checked the weather, so he's going to get a bit of a surprise when we load in to the session, the race session possibly. As Crema makes his way through the hairpin, that looked pretty neat. Once again, he's up into that overtake mode as well, making his way towards Spoon. We'll see if he can handle this a little better than his teammate did. First apex was better, but he's very, very wide, and of course the camber of the track, I thought Contrast was going to give him some slipstream there, but not quite. The camber of the track just, the car just begs to understeer out towards the gravel on the outside there of Spoon. So if you do miss that apex of the second part of it, then yeah, you're in a whole world of hurt. Again, the car actually turned in for the rest of the corner. You just understeer wide and lose tons of time. Crema goes up to P8. Pretty solid qualifying from him, but of course there are a lot of drivers close behind that have a chance to improve. Want to go up to the battle for pole though. See whereabouts is Amazing Hour on the track as well. He's in the middle of his lap. He's just coming around Spoon. That's a better line through there. Not running too wide as well. On the power nice and early. He's got a massive improvement to make though if he wants to try and get himself up towards pole position here. Coming down towards the final chicane, braking just after the 100-meter board. Get the car tucked in. He doesn't really take much of the first curb, not too much of the second either. You really want your car halfway across both of those curbs as he runs to the line. An Amazing Hour can only manage 4th place. He's miles off of the Mercedes guys. We'll hop on board with Swaggy then. Sorry for jumping around so much, just trying to see who's furthest up on their lap. But Swaggy, of course, very quick earlier in the session, currently sitting in P2, has a possibility to grab pole position for McLaren here. He makes his way to the final chicane. We'll see how he takes this. Breaks a little bit earlier, I think, than Amazing Hour did. He gets himself a lot more curb on the second apex because of it. Struggling a bit on the traction. Car revving out, but what's it going to be for Swaggy? It's not actually an improvement. Darren does improve though. He goes to pole position, 26.4, and now Pete Crichton with a whole heap of curb through the final chicane. That looked nice from him. Is going to make his way to the line, open the DRS, tightest line, and Pete, wow. Pole position over his teammate by 1,000th of a second in Suzuka. The Mercedes split by the finest of margins that we have, and it's Pete Crichton on pole, and that is desperately crucial for him in his championship hopes. He really needs Amazing Hour to DNF this race to have any hope of championship possibilities going into Brazil, but well, he's certainly pulled it out of the bag with that pole lap, and I'm sure his teammate will be pretty much furious with that. Yeah, it's, I think all of the drivers have finished their laps. It is indeed. The only person that's not crossed the line is Plevs, who's in the pit lane. So that's the qualifying order done. But yeah, these Mercedes guys, wow. I bet they weren't expecting that one loading into the session. So there we have it, the grid order for the race. Remember, once again, starting in those wet conditions. So it is Pete Crichton on pole, just edging out his teammate. It's as close as you get. Swaggy in 3rd with Amazing Hour in 4th, a long, long way off of pole. Possibly a wet setup. Harry Tomato in 5th, Crossy in 6th with Piga and Andre behind them. Andre on the softs has done very well to get himself in 8th. Be cursing his luck when he realizes the rain is going to come down. Crema and Elton with a top 10 qualifying. He'll be very happy with that. Contrast in 11th, Dynamite, LJB, Plevs, Infinite March, and Banana Josh making up the rest of the grid. We'll see if this rain does come true. I'm assuming it has done. Well, sir, I'm assuming my info isn't wrong, seeing as all of the drivers bar one went for the Super Softs. And there we have it. The rain is falling here for the race. It's supposed to last for the duration of the race, but of course the weather can sometimes be pretty unpredictable, especially at Suzuka, so who knows what the weather will do later on. But for right now, we do have some light rain falling at the track, likely intermediate conditions for the drivers. In terms of strategy, would certainly expect a one-stop race if it is light rain all the way through. However, you know, these wet races, if the tire wear is low enough, I don't actually know what the tire wear rates are on the intermediates of this track, if I'm honest, but if the tire wear is low enough, don't completely rule out a no-stop either. But it's likely to be a one-stop strategy, assuming that the weather holds, as the Mercedes guys pull away from the grid. And there we go, the whole field on the intermediate compound of tyres, the clear choice in these conditions. Nothing else really to go for, but yeah, especially starting in the wet, you know, it's very difficult off of the grid. Getting that little clean run and having clean air kind of into turn 1 and whatnot, Pete will be very, very happy with just nabbing that pole position. Now really what he's got to do is just hold on into turn 1, defend that inside line, and you know, then he just has to rely on, well, realistically, a mistake from Amazing Hour, who was a long, long way off of pole, but still managed to grab P4. I think he was about 8, 9 tenths off in the end, which is a long way for him. Possibly a wet setup. I do also know that, you know, Amazing Hour is on the pad, and Pete and Darren are on the wheel, and it's a bit of a wheel track. Certainly the first sector. But yeah, I mean, maybe for the race that'll be even out a little bit. But for Amazing Hour, he's just got to, well, I mean, for him, it's really a question of whether he pushes and attempts to win the race, or just kind of holds station, takes his time, and tries to just pick up the championship. His main concern has to be the start, though, in turn 1, and making sure that he keeps his front wing and making sure that he avoids contact at all costs. If he can avoid contact and maintains his position, well, he's in a very, very good position for the title. Of course, this track in the wet is very difficult, so we won't count our chickens until they hatch. But realistically, you know, that's all he's focusing on right now, is just surviving this turn 1, which is easier said than done in the wet at Suzuka. Yeah, a little further back, of course, we've got Harry Tomato with a brilliant qualifying P5 for him. He'll be ecstatic with that one. And then out of our battle for P4 in the championship that we were mentioning earlier, Piga is the only one in the top 10. It's a big surprise. He's in 7th place, which is a little lower than he would normally want to be. And then Contrast and Plebs in 11th and 14th are way down there. But we're lining up on the grid for the 9th round of the season. We've got another Mercedes 1-2 lockout here. And it is Pete Crichton on that pole position, edging out his teammate by the finest of margins in qualifying. And now we've got to see who's compromised the least for the wet weather conditions. Did the Mercedes take too much of a gamble in qualifying? Maybe push for too much of a qualifying setup? We're about to find out as the lights are building for the penultimate round of the 4th season of AOR Oceania on PS4, and it is lights out and away we go in Suzuka. It's a tentative start from most of the drivers. Actually, Amazing Hours had an absolutely rocket start from P4. He's already alongside Darren. Pete Crichton holds on to the lead as Amazing Hour runs wide. Just about manages to rescue the car, but he loses that position to Swaggy once again. Did the hard work off of the grid and then kind of threw it away by running wide. But Pete Crichton holds on to the lead. Great start from him, good getaway, and then just kept it easy through turn 1, kept things smooth, and he does lead the pack up through the S's. Swaggy getting a lot of pressure from Amazing Hour as they make their way up through Dunlop. Amazing Hour very, very close. These guys still tightly packed. Although Amazing Hour is just about clipped the grass on entry, runs a little wide. Does manage to get the car slowed down enough, though. I thought he was possibly going off into the gravel there, but he's just about kept it. And they're making their way into the hairpin. This is a possible overtaking opportunity for the drivers if they're feeling bold in the wet conditions. Very difficult braking zone as the track kind of curves away to the right under braking, but a possible opportunity for some of these guys. Swaggy looking pretty close to Darren, actually. And at this point, it's all about who can adapt to the conditions best in these opening laps on the intermediates. You've just had a dry qualifying session, and Swaggy has a very poor spoon, and that's going to give an opportunity to an Amazing Hour. We know how little wing he typically likes to run, although overtaking in the wet can be very difficult along the straight, so you've really got to wait for some kind of mistake and then just pounce on it. But Amazing Hour, not quite close enough to get a move done there. Swaggy has a great chicane as well. As the drivers make their way across the line for the first lap, and Amazing Hour is looking very close to this McLaren here. Is he going to have to defend it to turn 1? No, he's just far enough ahead, and Amazing Hour has to hold his nerve there. Already pulling away from the rest of the field. Harry Tomato not able to hang on to the group of the front-running 4 pace-wise. Just dropping about 2 seconds back. He's got Piga behind him, who's made up a place off the start. Let me see if I can get the position change there. So Contrast and Plebs are 2 protagonists in the, 2 out of 3 protagonists in the battle for 4th end of the championship. Brilliant starts from those guys, up 3 and 4 positions respectively. So they might have had very poor qualifyings, but they're making up for it in the race. And big loser off of the start is Andre. After qualifying on the soft compound tyres, not realising it's wet, has now dropped 4 positions down to 12th. So he's having a bit of a nightmare at the moment. Pete Crichton beginning to pull away a little bit up front, just getting himself out of that 1 second margin. Of course, the 1 second margin means much less in the wet because there is no DRS. As Swaggy runs a little bit wide out of Spoon, he's looking very close to the back of Darren there, but just ran a little wide and understeered off onto the curb, and there's no traction out there, absolutely none. So he doesn't quite get the run that he wanted. He's still pretty close to Darren though, and possibly be looking for a move into turn 1 if he can get a really good exit, as Darren runs a little bit deep through the chicane, but Swaggy just kind of understeers through the second apex there and isn't able to get the run. Really, he got a good run there, there's a possibility for it, but Pete Crichton with the fastest lap of the race, as you would expect. Looking a little further down, Crossy possibly trying to go for a move on Pigga. He's not quite close enough. In contrast, on the back of these guys as well, Plevs has just made a position on Crema too, so he makes his way up into 9th place, as Contrast is getting very, very racy with Crossy there, looking for a way past. But yes, these guys in the battle for 4th in the championship now, 6th, 8th and 9th on track together with the Williams car in between them. Contrast looks to have some very good pace. Perhaps the lack of pace in qualifying was going for a more of a wet setup. As I hold on a second, we've missed out here. Swaggy has made some kind of mistake. Amazing Hour is up and through into 3rd place, and that will not give Pete any joy to see Amazing Hour up there on the podium. Of course, Amazing Hour just needs a top 5 to win the championship. So long as he finishes 5th or above, he is the champion, regardless of where Pete finishes. That's assuming that Pete wins the race, which he is currently on track to do, but it's a long way to go. So we've got some yellow flags further down. I think there's been contact with Contrast, possibly there has. He spun at Spoon. I think maybe Pigga was involved in that as well, because he dropped a couple of positions, and Contrast now dropping down to 11th. It doesn't look like he's got damage, but he's lost a lot of ground to those guys he was battling with. So Swaggy, after that mistake, is trying to get himself back up closer to this group once again. Amazing Hour with the fastest lap of the race, and perhaps that's what that gap in qualifying was. Maybe looking at a bit more of a race setup here from the Sauber driver, a bit more of a wet setup. But for now, it is Pete Crichton out in front by 2 seconds. That gap is slowly extending to his teammate Darren, who is all over the place in Dunlop, really struggling on the traction up there. Amazing Hour looking a little better through. And of course, if he is going for that kind of more of a wet setup, maybe a bit lower ballast, make the car a bit more understeery and stable, just generally much easier to drive in the wet. And then in that situation, you've got a bit more confidence to push the car. It's a little easier to adapt to the conditions as well when you've got an easier car to drive. But Amazing Hour getting really quite close to Darren now. Darren needs a good exit out of Spoon. He does hook up the apex pretty nicely though. Amazing Hour just taking his time mid-corner. He gets a really good run out of Spoon though. Very, very good exit. Swaggy's dropped a long way back. I think he had a very poor exit. But here we go. Amazing Hour is getting very close to Darren. Is he going to think about a lunge? He's a bit too far back this time round. It's all about trying to force a mistake from the car in front. Darren runs a little bit deep in the chicane as well. Got to be very careful of that massive bump. But look at this, Amazing Hour is all over the back of him now. Darren struggling on the traction. He's possibly going to have to defend into turn 1. He will. He goes all the way to the inside of the track. Amazing Hour trying to look around the outside, going for a bit of a switchback actually. No space to do that though, as Darren runs kind of deep. But he's not quite close enough. Amazing Hour to get that move done. Darren closed the door very nicely mid-corner, and didn't allow that switchback to happen. Just made sure that his car was blocking it off. Amazing Hour once again getting a much better run. You can tell. I feel it just looks like he's running a far more stable setup than Darren, who's really struggling on traction. It seems to be, he seems to have good rotation in this car. He's really, really struggling getting the power down. It's Amazing Hour. He just has just so much more stability. He's thinking about a move into the hairpin. Oh, he's almost over on the grass there. A bit of contact as well. Not quite. Swaggy's dropping back even further from this battle. He's really struggling to hold on to them. As Amazing Hour is still very, very close. Darren's going to have to defend into Spoon now. As Amazing Hour gets a little bit of a wider line. Darren just endlessly defending. He's run a little bit deep though through the second apex of Spoon. And here we go. Amazing Hour is all over the back of him. This is the best opportunity he's going to get, surely. As they're going to go side by side up towards 130R. No, Darren's able to just about stay ahead. He feels the need to defend it though. Amazing Hour looking to get a move possibly, but he kind of messes it up a little bit. And he's going to have to wait for another opportunity there. Very, very good car placement from Darren. And I'm assuming that Amazing Hour has got at least one click less of ballast on his car because he's so stable. There's the rear end of that Mercedes in front of him is stepping out a lot. So these guys once again nose to tail through turn 1. Amazing Hour just trying to work out where he can possibly pass this Mercedes. Pete is 4.5 seconds up the road, but once again, Amazing Hour, I mean, it's, at this point, it's, in terms of winning the race, it's almost a kind of a pride thing. It doesn't really matter in terms of the championship, he just needs the top 5, but he gets once again another very good run out of Dunlop. And Darren forced to defend constantly. That's just extending the gap for Pete. She won't mind too much, but Pete's really got to hope that some of these other guys behind, the likes of Swaggy, maybe even Hair Tomato, who's holding on to P5 very, very well, gotta say, can get up towards these guys, and these guys battle so much, they cost each other so much time that those guys can begin to catch up. It's Amazing Hour once again all over the back of the Mercedes, but he's not quite close enough. He's got to be careful that he doesn't lose his front wing here. It's got to be in the back of your mind when you're in the wet, following another car really closely, that the braking points are a bit different. People, in the dry typically have very set braking points. You're breaking the exact same marker into the corner for pretty much 27 laps, not quite, but very, very much the similar marker. Whereas in the wet, that can change quite a lot as you learn the track as the race goes on. And once again, Amazing Hour just with much better traction, but doesn't quite get the run. He almost got too good of a run right there. Too good of an exit. He had to pretty much back out of it because he was going to run into the back of Darren. Once again, just looking for any kind of opening. Can't do it though. Darren's done an absolutely brilliant job in terms of placing his car here. Defending absolutely beautifully as we have a virtual safety car as Crema has crashed out of the race. So there's one Ferrari down. We'll see. Oh, he's put it in the pit wall. Pig is a bit too far back. Pig has lost a massive amount of time. I have no idea how he's ended up down 15th. But Crema has hit the pit wall. And he is out of the race. He probably, what I'm assuming, and I have seen this kind of incident before here, I'm assuming that he's hit the massive bump out of the final chicane and is just speared into the pit wall. I'm going board with Piga and see if we can get a better view of it. No, the car has been cleared off now as the virtual safety car has ended and we're back under racing, back at green flag. But yeah, I think he's hit that massive bump, I'm assuming, and has gone spearing into the pit wall there. So race over for Crema. No points here today for him. Amazing Hour currently has 15 points. It's more than he needs, but he wants more. Wants those bragging rights of possibly winning this race, though Pete Crichton is making that more and more difficult every single lap. He pulls away as Amazing Hour running kind of wide there through 130R, struggling with the dirty air. One thing we've seen just get so much better exits. The tail end of Darren's Mercedes stepping out constantly, and this is a really good run for Amazing Hour. Now he looked a long way back, but he's got a brilliant exit, and they're going to go side by side, possibly into turn 1. He looks to cut that line again. Darren's aware of it. He runs kind of deep though. Amazing Hour looking for any kind of purchase, any kind of traction he can find, but it's not enough. And once again, Darren defends. He's done that same defensive move 2-3 times, I think now. Amazing Hour has got to try something different here if he wants to get past. He's either going to try something on strategy. In terms of the tyre wear, it's kind of an unknown. But always he's looking possibly around the outside of Dunlop. That's not quite going to work. Darren's just covering it off. He's once again all over the back of him. And a possibility into the hairpin here for Amazing Hour. He's all over the back of him now. They're going to be side by side going around that right-hander. He almost loses the car. He's so late on the brakes, desperately trying to get ahead, but Darren closes the door and defends once again. Amazing Hour in the slipstream is going to get another run through 200R. Down towards Spoon. Darren once again defending that inside line, just parking his car in the middle of the track. He holds on. As now Amazing Hour is attempting to go all the way around the outside. He's almost made that work. I think he has made it work. And he goes around the outside of Spoon and gets the move done. That's unbelievable from Amazing Hour. Darren's going to try and get him back though. They're going to go side by side at 130R in the wet. This surely will not end well as they do go side by side and they just about make it. And Darren just gets his nose ahead. They're side by side once again into the chicane. There's a bit of contact there. And look at this, Swaggy's right up on the back of them now. Almost loses the car. He almost puts it in the pit wall. It's an Amazing Hour trying his best to get past Darren here. He had it done and then Darren got him back. Beautiful battling from these guys. He's going to have to throw it all the way around the outside of turn one. He tries a cutback line. He's just about got himself alongside. There's a little bit of contact as they're side by side now into the S section. And Darren just about gets his nose ahead and gets the position. What incredible battling from these guys. Unbelievable. Amazing Hour gets the move done around the outside of Spoon. You would have thought that was impossible. And then Darren gets it done around the outside of 130R in the wet. It just... simply brilliant to watch. Swaggy's now right on the back of these guys looking to get involved. P. Crichton's 9.5 seconds ahead. These guys are battling so hard, he's just storming away with it. This Amazing Hour once again looking for something at the hairpin. He's going to go for a bit of a cutback, I think. No, not quite. Can't quite get the line. And Swaggy is just lying in wait for these two to possibly come together. They've somehow avoided each other so far. And how close they're getting through there. Bit of contact, bit of... I don't think he broke his front wing. I think it's still okay. Amazing Hour's going to be very concerned about this McLaren, but once again he gets an incredible exit. Just got so much stability in his setup here. Their side would no, not quite. Look for something through 130R, but the dirty air just kind of halting that. Darren once again parking his car in the middle of the track. Amazing Hour is going to get a really, really good exit here. He had a much wider entry to the corner. Darren nearly puts it in the pit wall. They're side by side along the start-finish straight. He's been struggling with that traction zone all race long, and here comes Amazing Hour. Surely now you can get this done, but they're side by side into turn one. He's going to have to do it all the way around the outside. No, he doesn't. He goes for the switch back. A bit of contact between the two of them. They're wheel banging their way through turn one. Amazing Hour gets the nose of the car ahead. He almost loses it, and he has just about gone the position. No, he hasn't. There's a lot of contact as Swaggy has somehow crashed, I think. No, he's disconnected. There's somehow contact between these two as Darren kind of pushed him off a little bit there. Amazing Hour. Maybe not too happy with that one. Gets a monster run up through Dunlop, but can't quite get the position. He was pushed off onto the grass. He will not be happy about that now. I feel like the gloves are going to start coming off between these two. I feel like Amazing Hour was pushed off of the track there. Looking for that cutback line through the hairpin. Trying to put up the exit. Gets a pretty good run of it. Oh, as Darren touches the grass and really struggles there for a moment. Had to lift. And now Amazing Hour around the outside is Spoon, possibly once again. Not quite. Maybe looking for a dive up the inside, but no. Darren has to defend so hard, and Amazing Hour is going to get a great run. He just cannot seem to find a way past this Mercedes. And once again, Darren's going to have that inside line for 130R. He holds on for another couple of corners. Amazing Hour think about a dive. No, he doesn't. He's trying to set up this line once again as Darren runs deep again. Amazing Hour with the traction. Very close to the pit wall for Darren. Oh, almost loses an Amazing Hour. Again, getting that great run, but I mean, how can he possibly get past it turn one here? He's got to try it around the outside, surely. Rather than trying this cutback again, he does try it around the outside. He goes for it. Bit of contact between the two of them. Not quite. Bit of wheel banging. A little bit of a racing contact there, but he tried around the outside. He realizes that cutback now is not going to work. Darren just keeps closing the door on him. He has to try something different. gotta apologize to every other driver in the race. Getting absolutely none of their races broadcasted here. This battle is too good to pull away from. Unfortunately for at least there's the gaps are a little bit bigger. As Amazing Hour has gone for a dive up in the second Degner. A lot of contact there. He's kind of pushed Darren wide. He takes the position, but I don't know. It was maybe not entirely clean. I'm sure that there might be a stewards inquiry after this race. I mean, Amazing Hour will be feeling that he was shoved off at turn 3, and he's kind of just given what he got there, but who knows. I don't think either driver would necessarily be too happy with either of those moves, but Amazing Hour has found his way through in possibly the corner that you would least expect an overtake on the entire track, the second Degner. But he is up and through into second place. 14.1 seconds up to Pete Crichton. He's got 15 laps to try and run that down for a possible win, but I don't know, it seems like a bit much. But for right now, as Darren gives himself a 3-second penalty just for a real slap in the face after losing the position. But yeah, for Amazing Hour, of course, he is in that title winning position right now. He's gotten himself ahead of the other Mercedes, so for his sake, he's in a very, very good position. The only thing stopping him from the title at this point is likely a wall, which is going to be his main focus on keeping his car out of them for the remaining 15 laps of the race. But yeah, Amazing Hour, if he finishes like this, he will be the champion, of course. He just needs, he can afford to drop 15 points to Pete, and right now he's only dropping 7. So Amazing Hour in the position to win the title at the moment. Looking a little further back, we'll do a bit of a recap after watching that battle for that lasted a full 10 laps. It was unbelievable. Great racing from those two. But Harry Tomato in 4th, doing very, very nicely for himself. Of course, he's currently sitting 8th in the championship. His best result this season is a 6th place. So he's in a great position. He's got Plevs 2.5 seconds behind, and that gap is closing. Plevs was about 5 seconds back a little while ago, maybe 6-7 laps. So that gap is closing down, the Renault catching. Then we've got Crossy in 6th place. He's, of course, 7th in the championship, involved in that same battle as Harry Tomato. And he can't afford to lose too many points to Harry Tomato here today. So he'll definitely want to hold on to this 6th place. Then we've got Contrast, who obviously had that spin at Spoon earlier in the race. He got himself up into 7th, 8th place, had a spin, back down to 11th. He's got himself back up to 7th again. Seems to have very good pace. He does seem to be catching Crossy, I think, as well. Dynamite in 8th, followed by LJB Infinite March as the final point scorer at the moment. Then we've got Banana Josh and a couple of big gaps. Andre, of course, who got the strategy horribly, horribly wrong in qualifying. And then Swaggy, who disconnected, unfortunately, for his sake, because he was up in 4th position and was right on the back of that tussle between Amazing Hour and Darren. But yeah, I mean, at this point, things are a little bit more spread out. Have a moment to take a slight breather after that 10 laps of crazy battling, as Pete Crichton's got the audio bug there. So we'll try not to go on board with him too much. But yeah, that gap at the moment, 14 seconds between Amazing Hour and Pete Crichton. So Pete Crichton and Amazing Hour at the moment look like they're pretty much nailed on their positions. Once again, barring one of those walls I was mentioning earlier. Very difficult track in the wet. I mean, it's difficult in the dry, but it's even more difficult in the wet. So don't count out a crash from either of those two. Of course, I don't want to commentate or curse them, but it is always a concern at Japan. Seen a lot of late race crashes here in the past. And then Darren, of course, now that he's been overtaken by Amazing Hour, is dropping back considerably. Really struggling. I think he went for more of a qualifying setup. Wasn't quite able to get pole, of course, just that 1,000 difference between himself and his teammate. And it shouldn't be ignored either that the two Mercedes drivers are involved in a battle for 2nd in the championship as well. I mean, we've been talking about, Pete and his possible title contention, and that's beginning to look like it's coming towards its end as Darren makes his way into the pits. First one to pit, I think. Or at least first one to pit on the regular strategy. Let me just check that. Yeah, because Andre and Swaggy, I think Swaggy's AI pit, and Andre had to pit early due to damage, as Darren, I think, got held there in the pit, so that's not going to help him out. Harry Tomato in, lots of drivers all coming in the midpoint of the race. They're all coming in for a new set of intermediate tyres, just doing the typical one stop in the wet strategy of just pitting in the midpoint and splitting the tyres half and half. That was Dynamite up into third. So Darren lost a little bit of ground, I think, to Harry Tomato there. He lost a second. Couple people saying in the chat, you know, maybe the positions should have been given back. Maybe Amazing Hour should have given it back, or maybe Darren should have earlier. Well, it's one to leave to the stewards at the end of the day. And they're the ones that'll make the decision on that one. As Darren grabs himself another time penalty, as Crossy has left the session. Crossy's disconnected as well, our second disconnection of the race, running in P7, and that is, well, that's a huge blow for him in his battle for seventh in the championship, especially with Harry Tomato up there in fifth and what will be fourth after Dynamite pits. Interestingly enough, though, so Contrast gets himself up into seventh off of that. He's right on the back of Plebs as well. Plebs, I think, had a front wing change, judging by how much time he lost in the pit stop. So Contrast has gained a lot of time on and through that. But that's interesting, because if Plebs was borderline catching Tomato with wing damage, I'm very interested to see what he can do without it. At least I'm assuming it was wing damage. He might have got to stop go at some point that I missed due to all that battling with Darren and Amazing Hour. But yeah, Darren's got himself a brand new set of tyres. I'll get an idea on the gap to the leader here. So Darren 40 seconds off his teammate at the moment. The pit window, sort of the pit length here is about 25, 26 seconds. It's quite a long pit lane, which is generally why the races, well, half the reason why the races trend towards one stops. The other reason this is overtaking here is not exactly easy, as we certainly saw with Darren and Amazing Hour. It took Amazing Hour 10 laps to get the position off of him. As he's now running up to the back of Dynamite, who has not pit yet. Still out on the tyres he started the race on, so Dynamite just going a lap or two longer than the rest of the field, maybe trying to give himself a little bit of an advantage towards the end of the race. And Darren is actually catching the leaders at the moment on these fresh tyres, so possibly a bit of an undercut coming out here. If Amazing Hour doesn't react, he might have some trouble, as Darren is now beginning to understand the pains of overtaking in the wet at Suzuka, as Dynamite just kind of parks his car wherever he likes. Darren's going to have to do this around the outside of 200R. Horrible place to have to try and overtake. He's going to have to do it into Spoon now. Throws his car up the inside. Says to Dynamite, I'm coming through whether you like it or not. Gives him a bit of a punt off the track as well. And Darren is up and through. As both Pete Crichton and Amazing Hour make their way into the pits. Of course, Pete long way out ahead. Amazing Hour grabbing himself a new set of intermediates. Of course, everybody... oh, hold on a moment. Oh, you have to be kidding me. I think Amazing Hour is stuck in his pit box. As Dynamite comes into the pits and Amazing Hour is stuck. He's stuck in the pit box at Japan. We saw this last season, I think, in the European PS4 F1 tier. And now Dynamite is stuck behind him as well. So, absolute disaster here for Sauber. And for Amazing Hour, this is putting his championship in a lot of trouble, because now he's going to likely drop out of the top 5. He's already dropped out of the top 5. He's just stuck there. And I don't know what he can possibly do to get himself going again. And Dynamite is stuck behind him. He can't get into his pit box because Amazing Hour's car is just right there. So, yeah, there's nothing much to really say about this other than there's just something that needs to be fixed for F1 2019. An Amazing Hour at this point is likely going to lose 25 points to Pete Crichton, and the title fight will go to Brazil, and with a 15-point gap. As Banana Josh is retired from the race. Not quite sure what's happened to Banana Josh. I'll keep an eye on that pit box with the Saubers, but and I don't know what's happened to Banana Josh there. We'll see if he's crashed into the pit wall, like we saw with Kremer earlier. But yeah, he has put it in the pit wall. The second one today, seeing that, is a really awkward place because you've got that giant bump coming out of the final chicane. Hold on a second. Crossy's back in the race. And he's still in P6 somehow. Of course, because Amazing Hour and Dynamite have lost position, so Crossy now is still in a reasonable place. And Plebs is catching Harry Tomato very, very quickly. That gap was 9 seconds a few laps ago. It's now 5. So it looks like, well, I mean, hold on a second. Because of Amazing Hour's issues, Harry Tomato, whose best position is 6th place this season, is now in 3rd. He's on the podium right now. He's got a Renault reeling him in, but Harry Tomato with a possible podium. And yeah, Dynamite, Amazing Hour, let me have a look at these guys. They're still stuck. Apparently there's the same car now. I think that's race over for those guys. And getting stuck, and there's nothing the Silver Mechanics can do there. It's just, yeah, that's awful to see. Really, really awful to see. As Harry Tomato's had a moment. Talk about a commentator curse. And speaking of, he could possibly get a podium here and loses 3 seconds to Plebs through via mistake. And Plebs is bringing Contrast, well, I say bringing along with him. I mean, Contrast doing it all by himself, so not within Slipstream. But yeah, this pair are closing up to Harry Tomato. So Harry Tomato has a possibility of a podium, but he's going to have to defend well against these guys who look much, much quicker at the moment. A lot of frustration from people watching this. Yeah, both Salvers are stuck in the pit box, and I don't think there's anything that they can do. As far as I know, there's not any fix to it. And obviously, in terms of the league as well, there's nothing really that the league can do either about it. Game glitch is, yeah, there's nothing that anyone can really do about this situation. It's just unfortunate. Obviously heartbreaking for Amazing Hour, who would have wanted to win the title today. Was certainly on track to do so. P2, enough points to win it here, and while lightning has certainly struck, I'm sure that there will be a small smile on Pete Crichton's face. He won't want to carry on the championship like this with a glitch, but you do have to take what you get in league racing sometimes, and for his sake, as the title fight goes on to Brazil. But yeah, not the way that you want things to continue on. And of course, it's heartbreaking for Dynamite as well, because Dynamite, is just caught up in that. There's nothing that he can do. He's 9th place in the championship. He's involved in that fight with Harry Tomato and Crossy, who are both in brilliant positions in this race. They're getting loads of points, and Dynamite is stuck in a pit box. Plebs in 4th place is on the back of Harry Tomato now, and can Harry Tomato defend for this podium? I don't know if Harry Tomato has ever had a podium in this league. He's been in the league for multiple seasons. But I don't know if he has ever actually had a podium. I'll try and find the answer to that while we're watching this battle. We'll see if we can hang on to it. Of course, we saw Darren defend for 10 laps earlier, while being much, much slower than Amazing Hour. So what can Harry Tomato do possibly to defend from Plebs? For Plebs, it's really important he gets his move done quickly, so Harry Tomato can't learn where he's strong on the track, but he's got a great run out of the final chicane. And Harry Tomato's not actually going to defend the inside. He chooses the outside line. They're going to go side by side. And Plebs gets the move done straight away. He does in one corner what it took Amazing Hour 10 laps to do. A different driver, of course. But yeah, Harry Tomato didn't really even fight that. I'm kind of amazed, to be honest, that he didn't put up a fight for it. But there we go. Plebs up into P3, onto the podium. And that's big for him, obviously, in the championship as well. He's battling Contrast for that 4th place. But yeah, so much for finding out if Harry Tomato had a podium, because he's now down to P4. But Contrast with a 3-second time penalty as well. Of course, time penalties are going to be a problem. And actually thinking about it, Darren has at least 6 seconds. We know that. He might even have more, I'm not quite sure. I think it is 6 seconds at the moment. So if he gets another one, Plebs has got an opportunity of P2 here on penalties. As Harry Tomato begins to fall back out of that range from Plebs, struggling to hang on to him. And Contrast is starting to close up a little bit on Harry Tomato. Of course, this would still be the best position of this season for Harry Tomato by 2 places if he can hang on to this P4. And Contrast has made a little mistake on this lap as well, so he doesn't gain much time. Currently 3 seconds back, he's got quite a lot of work to do. This catch up to Harry Tomato does 4/10 of it along the main straight. Yeah, Harry Tomato just falling back a bit from Plebs. Plebs with amazing pace. He's catching Darren as well. Look at that, he's taking 6/10 out of Darren in a lap. So Plebs with really, really strong pace here. What could have been for him if he didn't start all the way down, what was it, 14th I think? Yeah, he's up 11 positions in this Renault. That's incredible. So what could have been for him if he'd had a half-decent qualifying, who knows? Could have been up there in 2nd place by now. Possibly could have even been battling for the win with the pace he's got. But yeah, Contrast closing in on Harry Tomato. He takes pretty much a second out of him in the first half of this lap, making his way into the hairpin. Actually get some telemetry up for you as well. Completely forgot to do that earlier on. Got so sidetracked by the amazing AOR Darren battle that forgot to get that up on the screen. But yeah, Contrast obviously he does have a 3-second time penalty. So that's something he needs to be thinking about as well. Certainly can't afford another one. He's got a long gap behind him to Crossy, who of course, oh, is he disconnected again? I think he's disconnected again. Crossy is back out of this race. LGB is on track for 6th place here. But yeah, I mean that's going to put Andre, who has had an absolute nightmare of a day, qualifying, great quality lap on his soft tyres, but of course didn't realise what the weather was. Had a crash early on. I mean, he's on for P7 at the moment, somehow. He'll be, well, I'm not quite sure what he'll think of that. As, yeah, Crossy is out. So, yeah, Andre will somehow come away from this race with 6 points, most likely, assuming no more incidents, which is a big assumption at this track. But yeah, he'd be very, very happy with that. If you'd offered it to him, you know, 15 laps ago, he would have worked your arm off for it. Contrast just 4/10 behind Harry Tomato. He's really struggling through this first sector. It's where Contrast gained a massive amount of time on him on the previous lap as well. As they make their way through the Degner's really difficult part of the track. Curves are lethal. The car just wants to step out. Multiple occasions through those corners. Contrast all the way down in first gear and really revving the car out. He's low on fuel as well. Pretty standard to underfuel the car in the wet, but that is something you'll have to think about, whether fuel will be an issue for him coming towards the end of the race. Pete Crichton with the fastest lap with a 39.5. But it's now down to Contrast on whether he can get past Harry Tomato. And whether Harry Tomato will fight this. I thought he was going to battle really hard for the podium position. He just let Pleb sail right on through. So who knows? He might just let Contrast go as well. He was perhaps more concerned about just getting the points for his championship, of course. The guys that he's fighting with, Crossy is now disconnected. And Dynamite is still stuck in the pits. So Harry Tomato, if he gets 10 points here, he's almost out of that group. You'd say, no, he's almost nailed on for 7th place in the championship, which he'd be very happy with, I'm sure. But Contrast all over the back of him. Pleb's still gaining on Darren. He's almost within that 6-second margin. Oh, as Harry Tomato has a bit of a moment. But yeah, Pleb's almost within that 6-second margin now of Darren. So we do have a yellow flag in sector 1. I don't quite know who that's for, but Contrast. So now I've got to think about where he can make a pass on Harry Tomato. Ideally, he needs to start lining it up a couple corners before and then just go for it. Any opportunity you have to pass at this track, you must take. We've seen that Plez was able to do it quickly, but Amazing AOR took him a long time. So once you get a chance, you've got to take it. There's a possibility for Contrast. Oh, he's straight past him. I think Tomato lifted off. So once again, he's not really too interested in fighting it. Which I have to say is a surprise. You know, in the wet here, you'd certainly give it a crack to try your best to defend, but he is clearly content to just go for the points and thinking more about his just overall championship position. So yeah, he will pretty much settle for 5th place. So he was able to hang with Contrast maybe. Sometimes in the wet, following another car can be a little bit easier than driving up by yourself. You can see the lines that they're taking, kind of learn from them and see what works and see what doesn't work, and then copy what they're good at and keep what you're good at. But yeah, Contrast is starting to pull away already, so that might be a bit null and void. But yeah, Amazing Hour is retired from the race. He's had enough of his pit box. There's nothing really that can be said about that other than it's just awful luck, and the Codemasters need to fix it. But new game comes out in 2 weeks anyway, so hopefully it's good news on this pit issue. But yeah, Harry Tomato in 5th then. Plebs is right on that 6-second margin to Darren. He's got a chance here. Got a chance at P2. Well, not if he gets too aggressive on the traction. He got a big blown oversteer there. Got to be careful as I put it in a wall, but yeah, this will certainly be a bit of a what-if race from Plebs. I mean, it's been a brilliant comeback through the field. Him and Contrast really gaining, 18 positions between them, storming their way through the field. Obviously qualified a long way out of position, but yeah, they've driven brilliant races to end up where they are. Bit of luck involved as well. I think obviously Contrast had that spin earlier on too, so but a bit of luck with the way that the race has gone for the leaders in terms of well, Dynamite and Amazing Hour. Amazing Hour is certainly one of the leaders. Dynamite in that midfield scrap, missing out in the pits. I wonder Dynamite, yeah, he's still stuck there. He's still stuck. So even though Amazing Hour has retired from the session, Dynamite can't move. So yeah, there's nothing that he can really do. I believe that Swaggy is disconnected from the race. He has. Crossy's back in again. So he's still going in 7th place. So Andre's not quite going to get that 7th. Crossy's still there. So that fight in the championship for 7th place will likely continue on to Brazil between these guys. I mean, obviously mathematically it will continue, but in terms of realistic point scoring at Brazil, this Amazing Hour leaves the session. You can hardly blame him. He must be absolutely livid with that. But yeah, I mean, Crossy will lose 4 points to Harry Tomato in their little championship scrap. But he does have 2 points in hand, so Harry Tomato would have a 2-point lead over Crossy going into Brazil. And when you're battling for 7th place in the championship, a 2-point lead can be quite a lot. It's a really critical point to these guys here. And of course, this will put them a long way ahead of Dynamite, who's just jammed in that pit box. And we'll need an absolute monster result at Brazil to have any hope of beating these guys. They realistically need a podium to have any hope of beating them in the championship. But in the battle for 4th in the title, Contrast is currently 11 points ahead of Plebs. With this result, that will reduce down to 8. The way things look at the moment, although possibly with Plebs getting P2, maybe Darren has enough penalties. We have seen some penalties for him already. We know he has at least 6 seconds. I'm not sure if Plebs has one, but that might reduce the gap a little bit further, down to 5 points between the pair of them. Plebs and Contrast, that is. And then also in terms of the battle for 2nd place in the title, it's all getting a little bit confusing. This will give Pete a pretty handy advantage over Darren in that fight. He's currently 11 points ahead of his teammates. So that would be 18 after this race. Of course, 7-point gap between 1st and 2nd. So, yeah, not entirely out of the question. I mean, we've seen how things have gone in this race in terms of title fights. Obviously with the way that things have ended for Amazing Hour, and as long as Pete can get his car around the remaining 2 laps and 3 corners, that title fight will continue to Brazil with a 15-point gap. Of course, Amazing Hour is 40 points ahead at the moment, but this result will just be 15. Pete getting a whole heap of oversteer. Certainly not easing off. Fast lap the race for Pete Crichton. He does not want to hang about and just cruise around to the finish here. He's going to push all the way which when you got a 17-second gap is, that's bold, I'll say that, but although who knows, maybe he's cruising around in the wet at times. That can be actually quicker than pushing, and make sure you don't overdrive the car in these conditions. But Plev's still closing up to Darren. The gap's under 5 seconds now. Obviously coming from all the way back on 14th on the grid. Find himself on the podium will certainly be a surprise, and with a chance of P2, he would have, well, playing a wet race at Suzuka, you never would really expect anyone to go from 14th to the podium. Overtaking is tough here, and Plevs has somehow made it work, and somehow managed to cut his way through the field. Of course, with both him in contrast, those opening laps, where they gained a lot of positions, were critical for their races. It was Plevs that gained 4 places on the opening lap of the race, so for him that was absolutely crucial. And from there on, it's just been about picking the drivers off and waiting for mistakes and having very, very good pace, which he certainly does have. In contrast, obviously had that spin earlier on as well, otherwise he'd probably be right there on the track with Plevs. And you've got to say Plevs does look quicker, pulling away from contrast all the way through this stint. The gap was about 2 seconds at one point. It's now 9, almost 10. And here at Tomato, he's kept himself very nicely out of trouble. He's going to grab a top 5 at the end of it. Doesn't really have the anywhere near the same pace as Plevs in contrast, but he won't care. P5 would be his best result of the season, so he'll be quite happy with that, I think. But yeah, we make our way onto the final lap of the race. Pete Crichton leading the way. It's been a brilliant drive from him. We've been so focused on everything else that's happened, the battle between Amazing AOR and Darren, the controversy in the pits. A bit of controversy between that pairing and the track as well, but obviously the pit issue and then some of the other battles. We barely even mentioned Pete, other than in terms of the title fight. As Darren has left the session, Darren's disconnected on the final lap. So Plevs now is in a brilliant position actually to pick up second on track, but yeah, Pete has driven honestly a phenomenal race here. He will certainly not want to have the title fight continue in terms of a glitch, but he's driven like a champion today, you have to say it. No mistakes all the way through the race, had brilliant pace the whole way through, so he makes his way around the final couple of corners here in Suzuka, pushing the whole way around Infinite March. Possibly going to let him through, or does he actually want to do another lap of the race? We'll see. He does not feel like doing another lap of Suzuka. And Pete slides his way across the line for a win here in Suzuka. 25 points to his name. Plevs is going to finish in P2. Darren disconnecting. And possibly that'll give Contrast an opportunity to get close enough for a podium here. As Plevs makes his way through the final chicane from 14th to 2nd. Have to be mindful of the driver of the day, certainly, for Plevs. And crosses the line for P2. Darren's disconnected car. He had a whole heap of penalties there. As Contrast possibly close enough, though Contrast certainly has one himself. No, he is not close enough. Harry Tomato will cross the line next for 5th place. Very, very good result for him. Super consistent race from Harry Tomato. Did what he had to do in this race. Didn't quite have the pace of the top 4, but just kept it clean. Kept himself out of trouble. And will grab 10 points at the end of the day. LJB a long, long way back. But once again, another person we barely mentioned LGB in this race. Barely seen him. Found himself in the top 6 at the end of the race with all the chaos that's happened. Obviously with 4 retirements and 1 stuck in the pits and 1 disconnection. A couple other people with disconnecting cars throughout the race. We've seen a lot of that. Crossy, one of them, had multiple disconnections, still finishes P7. Considering all that happened in his race, he'll be very, very happy with a P7 here, as all the drivers have made their way across the line, and I believe the only thing that we're waiting for is Dynamite, who's still in the pit box and doesn't remotely seem interested in leaving the pit box. Not really blame him, but yeah. So that was 27 laps of Suzuka. Pete Crichton with a brilliant drive. I don't want that to be understated with everything else that went on and obviously the pit issue, but Pete Crichton drove brilliantly today. Absolutely beautifully driven from him. Had phenomenal pace, the way he was able to pull away from the guys behind so well in the opening laps. And then as they started a battle, he just built that gap and gave himself a huge margin just in case anything went wrong. A very, very good drive from him. But yeah, of course, with the pit issue, the title fight continues. So Pete Crichton is still in it. Going into Brazil, he would need to outscore Amazing Hour by 15 points in Brazil, but who knows? I certainly hope for Amazing Hour's case lightning doesn't strike twice. But Plez with P2, just simply unbelievable to come from 14th in the grid. There, so we're just waiting for the session to count down. Obviously that kind of 3-minute timer is still going because Dynamite is still in the pit box. The game doesn't recognize that he won't be leaving it. Yeah, once again, Suzuka delivering with plenty of good battling and plenty of drama. There'll certainly be some words said, I think, between Amazing Hour and Darren as well. Both of their races ended pretty disappointingly. Darren obviously having that late disconnection, and Amazing Hour, well, we all know what happened there. But Pete Crichton with a brilliant drive picks up the win in Suzuka. Never was really in doubt of winning the race, of course, and it's his third of the season. It's his third in a row for Pete Crichton, obviously winning in Belgium and Italy. He will do his best to make that 4 in a row in Brazil and possibly pull off what would be one of the biggest title upsets I've ever seen over Amazing Hour. But we'll have to wait for that possibly next week. But yeah, Pete Crichton in first, Plebs in second, Darren in third, Contrast in fourth. Harry Tomato finishes in 5th place in a big old gap down to LJB in 6th. Crossy 7th, Infinite March in 8th, Andre in 9th. That's where the points end because Swaggy disconnected very early on, and then Dynamite was jammed in the pits. And the DNFs, well, would technically be, I guess, Swaggy, Dynamite, Amazing Hour, Banana Josh, Piga, and Krabba. A couple of those guys finding themselves in the pit wall. Krabba and Banana Josh certainly did. But yeah, Suzuka certainly claiming a number of victims here today. But yeah, I mean, that was something. I'm not really sure what to say about that race, but it's a great battling. But obviously the title fight, kind of not ending on the note that it really should have, is a bit of a downer on things. But we certainly had some great wheel-to-wheel action between particularly Darren and Amazing Hour regardless. But yeah, if you want to watch more racing on the AOR channel, head across and check out the Xbox stream. Those guys always put on a good show as well. And then we'll have the European and American races later on today. European races 7, 8 and 9 p.m. for PS4, PC and Xbox respectively. Those are the top tiers, the F1 tiers. Everything else, so F2 and downwards for all platforms, are running at the standard 8 p.m. UK time. And the America's PC split will be broadcast at 1 in the morning. In terms of UK time, I believe that's 8 East Coast of the US. So yeah, thanks for joining me. I hope you all have a great Sunday, and I'll see you all next week for the season finale in Brazil and the eventual title decider between Amazing Hour and Pete Crichton.